Talent can open the door, but discipline is what keeps you in the room. People admire talent. They celebrate it. They talk about it like it's everything. Natural ability, fast success, instant results. But what they don't see is how fragile talent becomes without discipline. Because talent alone gets comfortable. It relies on potential. It expects things to come easily. And the moment life becomes difficult, the moment pressure appears, talent without discipline begins to collapse. Why? Because talent can start the race, but discipline is what finishes it. Discipline shows up when excitement disappears, when energy is low, when nobody is watching. That's why disciplined people keep growing, while talented people who avoid hard work stay stuck. Success is not built through rare moments of greatness. It's built through repetition. The small actions you repeat daily. The habits you maintain consistently. The standards you refuse to lower. That's where discipline wins, because discipline understands something powerful. Small progress, repeated long enough, becomes unstoppable. One workout, 1 hour of practice, one focused decision. It seems insignificant in the moment, but over time, it changes everything. Because discipline compounds, daily effort compounds, consistency compounds, and eventually, the person who kept showing up passes the person who relied only on talent. Anyone can work hard when they feel inspired. Anyone can stay committed when results come quickly. But what happens when progress slows down? When things become repetitive? When nobody notices your effort? That's where discipline is tested. Because discipline is not emotional. It doesn't depend on feelings. It depends on standards, on commitment, on the ability to execute regardless of mood. And that mindset creates a different kind of person. Someone reliable, someone focused, someone dangerous. Because now, they don't stop when motivation fades. They continue anyway. That is power. Real power. At the end of the day, discipline beats talent for one simple reason. Talent talks about potential. Discipline creates results. Talent waits for perfect conditions. Discipline adapts. Talent gets distracted. Discipline stays focused. Talent wants recognition. Discipline wants growth. And over time, that difference becomes impossible to ignore. Because while talented people stop when things become difficult, disciplined people continue building, quietly, relentlessly, daily. And eventually, the disciplined person becomes unstoppable. Not because they were gifted, but because they refuse to quit, refuse to settle, refuse to lower their standards. So don't worry if you're not the most talented person in the room. Be the most disciplined, because discipline will take you places talent alone never could. One day, people will look at your progress and call it talent. They'll never see the sacrifices, the repetition, the discipline behind it. They'll only see the result. But you'll know the truth. You earned it through consistency, through pressure, through showing up when it would have been easier not to. That's what built you. So keep going, keep working, keep sharpening yourself daily. Because talent may impress people at first, but discipline builds greatness that lasts. And greatness is never accidental. Stay disciplined. And the longer you stay disciplined, the more you realize something important. Discipline is freedom, freedom from excuses, freedom from inconsistency, freedom from becoming controlled by temporary emotions. Because most people live based on how they feel. If they feel motivated, they act. If they feel tired, they stop. If things become difficult, they quit. But discipline changes that. It creates stability, a system, a standard you follow, regardless of circumstances. And that's why disciplined people continue progressing, while others stay trapped inside cycles of starting and stopping. Because discipline removes negotiation. It removes hesitation. It removes the constant debate between comfort and growth. You simply do what must be done, again, and again, and again, until excellence becomes normal. That's the power of repetition. That's the power of discipline. It transforms actions into habits, habits into identity, and identity into destiny. So don't underestimate the value of small, consistent effort. Because what feels small today becomes massive over time. One disciplined day becomes a disciplined week. A disciplined week becomes a disciplined year. And eventually, that discipline shapes your entire life, your mindset, your body, your future. Everything changes when discipline becomes part of who you are. Because now, you're no longer depending on talent. You're depending on standards. And standards create consistency. Consistency creates results. Results create confidence. And confidence, built through discipline, cannot be broken easily. And understand this. Discipline is not something you use only when life is easy. Its true value appears when life becomes difficult, when stress increases, when pressure builds, when everything inside you wants to stop. That's when discipline matters most, because discipline carries you when motivation disappears. It keeps you moving when emotions become unstable. It keeps you focused when distractions surround you. And in those moments, you discover the difference between interest and commitment. Interested people act when conditions are convenient. Committed people act regardless of conditions. That's why discipline creates uncommon results. Because uncommon results require uncommon consistency. The ability to continue long after excitement fades, long after recognition disappears, long after the process becomes repetitive. And most people cannot handle repetition. They constantly chase something new, something easier, something faster. But disciplined people understand. Mastery is built through repetition, daily practice, daily effort, daily improvement, even when progress feels invisible. Because invisible progress is still progress. And every time you continue, despite difficulty, you strengthen your mind. You strengthen your character. You strengthen your ability to handle greater responsibility. That's why discipline is powerful. It prepares you for levels of success that weak habits could never sustain. So stop searching for shortcuts. Stop waiting for perfect timing. Stop hoping that talent alone will save you. Build discipline instead. Because discipline survives pressure. Discipline survives failure. Discipline survives difficult seasons. And the person who survives long enough with discipline eventually becomes because sooner or later, life tests everyone. Not with easy moments, with pressure, with setbacks, with exhaustion. And in those moments, talent is no longer enough. Because talent cannot save you if your habits are weak. Talent cannot protect you if your mindset collapses under pressure. Talent cannot carry you through years of consistency if you lack discipline. That's why discipline matters. Because discipline builds endurance, the ability to continue when progress is slow, when results are delayed, when nobody notices your effort. And that endurance creates separation. It separates people who only had potential from people who fulfilled their potential. Because potential means nothing if it's never developed. A talented person without discipline eventually becomes average. But an average person with relentless discipline becomes extraordinary. Why? Because discipline compounds over time. Every focused action, every repeated habit, every moment you choose growth instead of comfort builds momentum. And momentum is dangerous. Because once disciplined people gain momentum, they become difficult to catch, difficult to distract, difficult to break. Because now, their success is no longer based on emotion. It's built on systems, standards, structure, and structure creates stability. That's why disciplined people keep advancing, even during difficult seasons, even during painful moments, even when motivation disappears completely. Because they already decided who they are. And people with strong discipline do not negotiate with excuses. They execute, no matter how they feel, no matter how long it takes, no matter how difficult the journey becomes. That's the difference. That's why discipline always outlasts talent. And eventually, discipline changes more than your results. It changes you. The way you think, the way you respond to pressure, the way you carry yourself through difficult moments. Because every time you keep your word to yourself, you build trust internally. You prove that you can rely on yourself, that you can continue even when it's uncomfortable. And that kind of self-respect is powerful. Because now, you stop seeing yourself as weak. You stop identifying with excuses. You stop depending on external motivation to move forward. Instead, you become someone who acts with intention, someone who follows through, someone who understands that greatness is built through disciplined behavior repeated daily. That identity shift changes everything. Because once discipline becomes part of who you are, consistency becomes natural. You no longer debate whether to work. You work. You no longer negotiate with distractions. You eliminate them. You no longer wait for the perfect moment. You create momentum through action. And over time, those actions reshape your life completely. Not instantly, but steadily, powerfully. Until one day, the person you once were feels unfamiliar because discipline transformed you. Mentally stronger, emotionally sharper, more resilient, more focused, more capable. That's what people fail to understand. Discipline is not punishment, it's preparation. Preparation for the life you say you want. Because success without discipline cannot last. But success built on discipline becomes sustainable, stable, unshakable. So keep building it. Protect your standards. Protect your habits. Protect the routines that are shaping your future. Because every disciplined action is building a version of you, capable of achieving more than you once believed possible. So from this moment forward, stop measuring yourself only by results. Measure yourself by consistency, by how often you show up, by how often you continue when things become difficult. Because that is where real growth lives, not in comfort,